Howdy folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Tuesday, April the 11th, 2017, and I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming back author, world traveler, and good friend, Mr. Jeff J. Brown. And Jeff Brown's work can be found over at chinarising.puntopress.com. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you, Rory. It's always a pleasure to be on the Daily Coin and talk to your fans out there about China and the amazing things going on over here.
Well, we have a lot to talk about, so we're just going to jump right in.
All righty, let's get going. See a government that actually lives by the credo, serve the people, and so it's just fun to watch, and it's a privilege to be here.
Well, I'm glad that you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit over the past 2 years, and it's good for me to have a contact that I can rely on, that I know is honest and truthful, that's in the heart of the coming power shift. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, and I think that what we've seen just this past Thursday, Jeff, was I think that we're going to look back in history and go, wow, April the 6th, 2017 was a turning point. And I believe that in my heart of hearts, that what Trump did really kind of changed the course. I mean, the president of China, Xi Jinping, is in his office while he is launching missiles at China's partner, one of China's partners. And correct me if I'm wrong, but China had just committed not too long ago to go into Syria to help them to rebuild the disaster that we had created.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a punch in the gut. Here's the United States #1 trading partner sitting there face to face. I mean, that's ridiculous. What are you hearing? What are you hearing there as far as in regards to this?
I don't know what you've heard. I don't know what you've heard, Rory. I've heard that from pretty reliable sources that the Russians were informed of the attack before it happened, and the Syrians were too. They moved all the valuable stuff, equipment and material out of the air base before it was bombed. They didn't even they intentionally didn't hit the runway. I've seen drone footage of the airbase after the attack, and the Russians were using they were using the airstrip the next day. So this whole thing, comes across as like a big charade for. There's two possibilities, to make Trump look, imperial, and, we can go in and, bomb anybody we want, anytime, anywhere, under any pretext, that we want. And it could be, for Trump, to do some, to throw a piece of meat, to hit to the war party, that's, still, infected, throughout the government, the Hillary Bush, the Clinton Bush, war party. Trump is still for me just an enigma. So, but what I'm trying to say is that if the Russians knew about it and the Syrians knew about it, then Xi Jinping knew about it before Trump told him, because I can guarantee you, he would have gotten a communique from his Ministry of State Security that this was coming down the pike. And so, but yeah, I mean, I've thought about it, and there's people that have Machiavellian, analysts who have said that, Trump did this on purpose to send China a message, that they'd better do something about North Korea, or North Korea's next. I don't know, Rory. Half the missiles didn't even hit their target.
Right.
or they were taken out by from ground to air missiles by the Syrians. Uh, if I had to pick a scenario out of all of them, I think that Trump was basically being hammered and browbeaten by the war party, deep state in the government, and had to show America's might, and
well, he didn't do a very good job because he
yeah,
used
I know,
really old technology missiles going up against the latest, the S-400
yeah,
air assault system coming out of Russia. I mean, it's
yeah,
like throwing a cap gun at an M16.
yeah, but they're $1 million each, and so whoever makes those Raytheon or Boeing or whoever, it's $60 million, that they can add to their contract, their military contract. I don't know. The whole thing was just weird, and the fact that he told him at dinner, their first banquet together, at Mar-a-Lago, before the dinner started. But I can promise you that that he knew about it before Trump told him. And what's he going to say? He played along and said, oh, you have to. You have to fight people who are killing children and stuff like that. And of course the whole thing was a false flag.
Yes.
And I've heard also possibly that the Syrians might have hit an ISIS, which of course means American,
Right.
ISIS American armament bunker that had chemical weapons in it. Burned up the chemical weapons, and that town happened to be downwind. I've also heard the whole thing. The whole thing was just a complete and total, victimless, false flag. The whole thing was just a stage set.
Pretty much.
Pretty much, and that not 70 kids died. We don't know. It's there's only one news agency that's credible that's over there, and that's our Russia Today, RT.com, and they're getting there after the fact also. And as we've seen in places like Nice and Bataclan and Charlie Hebdo and the Boston Marathon. I mean, it can look real, but it's not. And these false flags, and so they may be also fooled. I don't know. But
what I saw, excuse me, Jeff.
Go ahead.
I've seen footage from reliable source by way of Russia Insider on YouTube. They source material through another agency called ANNA, ANNA, and they were on the ground in the bunker where this ammunition bunker. There's no chemicals. There's no ammunition. Guy's walking around. He's either Russian or Syrian, and he's speaking it's non-English. Everything's being translated, and he's no gloves, and he's saying there are no chemicals in here because if there were, I wouldn't be in here. And there's other footage that I've seen of the air base itself, missiles laying around on the ground unexploded. I mean, it's just a scam is what it looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, like you said, a stage set is exactly what it looks like. I mean, it's incredible.
To make America look imperial and assertive, and the world's policeman, going after the bad guys, and
the bad guys that we created and funded and trained and armed.
Yeah, exactly. And there's obviously there's a huge tug, and there's a huge tug of war going on. You've got Rex Tillerson and I think Trump who want to work with China and Russia, but you've got this massive deep state, at the Department of State, at the CIA, at the National Security Administration, Congress. I mean, it just all through the U.S. government. You have decades and decades of these, Cold War, Cold War criminals. The War Party, the Clinton Bush, faction, and they are doing everything they can to destroy any opportunity for anybody, whether it's Tillerson or Trump or anybody, to have a constructive, positive, beneficial relationship with China and Russia. These are the imperialists, the colonialists, the banks, the oil company, the oil companies, the military, the deep states, the spies at the CIA. Tillerson, I think today is in Moscow. I need to follow up.
I think that meeting was canceled. I think that there was something that there was a change made to that meeting. I can't remember.
I don't know. I'm going to have to get. I just woke up. It's 5 a.m. here, and I haven't seen the headlines yet. But they were even trying to get him to. They were trying to get him to cancel his trip, and then they were saying, "Oh, we're going to investigate Russia for being a part of the chemical attack in Syria." I mean, the whole thing. I mean, this is the CIA mass media propaganda machine. Just the relentless, shameless, demonization of Russia, Putin. And again, there is a massive, amount of hatred and fear of Russia, and this goes back decades, and they're still there. I mean, what Trump really needs to do is he really needs to do like Erdogan did in Turkey after the American-backed coup attempt to depose him. Was it early last year? Trump needs to fire about 20,000 military brass. He needs to, from the colonels up, he needs to fire every one of them, and at the Department of State and at the Department of Defense, and the CIA, he needs to fire 50,000 people. But
I mean, that's what I said before the election, or right at the election, was that what he needed to do was surround himself with loyal military and walk down the back hallways in the White House, in the Congress, in the Pentagon, in the State Department, in the CIA, the NSA, and just literally walk down through there and start getting people out of their office, out of their chair, and walking them out. Get out. And that's the only way that anything is ever going to change. I mean, and that's not necessarily going to change anything, but at least it's going to slow it down.
Well, or get the deep state that get the, hopefully, take a whack out of the deep state that that runs the country.
Exactly. And then turn the sights on the Federal Reserve and start making moves to get rid of them, because that's really the crux of the problem. And I want to change gears.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind, Jeff, because
sure.
Our time is kind of limited today. BRICS gold marketplace between Russia and China, one in Moscow, one in Beijing. This just hit the wire just prior, and the timing is kind of funny because it was just prior to the bombing or the attack on Syria.
Yeah, that's true. As Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, nothing in politics happens by accident. It all happens, for a reason, and when it happens and why it happens, it always happens, at a certain time for a certain reason. Yeah, the long and the short of it is, in 2015, late 2015, Putin and Xi met. They got they had the massive gas and oil pipeline project that they signed, the largest in the world, $700 billion in contracts for the Russians to sell oil and gas to the Chinese starting in 2018. And at the same time, they decided to interbanking between the Russian banks and the Chinese banks. And I'm not a banker, but apparently it's incredibly complicated to set up these, the wiring and the funding and the movement of funds between countries. And so they finally got it done. There's this CRIFT, the Chinese Russian interfund transfer to replace SWIFT, the one that's in Switzerland.
Yep.
And just this week, like you said, the world's largest bank, ICBC, the Chinese bank in Russia, have set up interbanking services to send each other money, which would be able to cut out the U.S. dollar and the euro for all of their trade. And just incidentally, this week, a trainload of Russian wheat, just went across the border. And they even mentioned in that local article that they will be able to pay in rubles or in RMB, et cetera. So, and that's going to hurt the Americans and the Westerns, because the Russians, the Chinese import about 6 million tons of wheat a year, and they were already saying in this article that they're going to be buying 1 to 2 million tons of that from Russia for the first time ever, which would be basically a third of 1/6 to 1/3 of their annual imports, which would come right out of the backside of Australia, Canada, and the United States and Western Europe. And of course, and another thing, the Chinese, and this was another thing that happened in 2015 also, was to get the phytoveterinary, clearance for all the stuff that Russia wants to ship to China. And of course, the other great thing about Russian material, there's no GMO in Russia, so that's
Right.
that's another big advantage. So they've got these banks set up. They've got they've talked about the ability to pay in gold. That's down the line, but the important thing is, and they could pay in gold. I mean, Russia and China are the world's two biggest producers of gold. China has been the largest buyer of gold for the 10 years straight. They're the world's biggest official buyer of gold on the international market, about 1,000 tons a year. And they're the biggest, the miner of gold, along with Russia. So they could trade in gold. Obviously, that would not be physical. It would be, probably, electronic gold, but based on the value of gold instead of the value of the U.S. dollar. And so, yeah, this stuff takes time. I mean,
Yes.
everybody it's taken a year and a half just for them to get the two banks, working together. So, but now it's up. It is running. They can do payments in rubles and RMB, and they have every reason to do so. And of course, the Russians are scared to death that the United States and NATO will force SWIFT to try to shut down Russia's ability just like they do with Iran and Cuba and North Korea.
But they don't have to be concerned with that, because they have their own system now.
Yeah, now that finally, it's taken them this long, but now they have their own system.
So, I mean, both China and Russia have their own independent systems that are now tied together, just like what you were just saying. So the world now can use that system and circumvent the dollar, the euro, the yen. They don't have to fool with any of this nonsense that is quite frankly, it's just dangerous currency. I mean, I'm not saying that the renminbi or the ruble are any better, but they're different. I mean, we know.
And also, I just want to say it's really exciting. They've also, both banks are selling bonds, ruble
Yes.
and RMB bonds. So there's
Yes.
debt now being bought and sold between the Russians and the Chinese in ruble and RMB, based bonds. So it's happening.
Yep. It is
Guys like
happening.
you and me and your fans out there. On the Daily Coin, we all want this to happen yesterday, but banking is an extremely complex business, and it just takes a lot of effort, to get a two international banking, well, national banking systems, to shake hands, and it just takes time. And now it's happening, and so hopefully, by the end of this year, 2017, we'll see some real, the fruits of it. Wheat, one belt, one road. The gas line's supposed to be coming on in 2018. The massive $700 billion, hydrocarbon contracts are supposed to start, coming online in 2018, so this is all really good news for anti-imperialists, who would like to see the United States and NATO and its allies, taken down a notch.
And it scares me. I'll just go ahead and tell you. I mean, I don't like the Federal Reserve. I hate the dollar because I know that it's nothing but a criminal. It's an instrument of debt enslavement. That's all that it is. And I want to see that change. And I've said for a very, very long time that once the currency becomes corrupt, everything else within government has to become corrupt in order to hide the lie that the currency is telling. And until that lie is exposed and disposed of, then it's not ever going to change. And that's what I want to change. I mean, I'm not, I'm not praising China. I'm not praising Russia. I'm not dogging America. I just want our system to change to where I, as a sovereign human being, can conduct the life that I want to conduct in the way that I want to conduct it without having some butthead telling me how to live and telling me that my currency is going to run my life. That's what I don't want. That's all that I've ever wanted to discuss is how to get around that. And if it means that the system that the Russians and the Chinese are putting into place that destroys this criminal enterprise here, then I'm for it. All for it. Get rid of it. Take it down.
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned the debt machine. Woodrow Wilson, the American president Woodrow Wilson. He was the one that was in office
Yes.
when the Federal Reserve was started, and he realized that he had been bamboozled by the big banks, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and he wrote in his private letters several years after, even while he was still in office, that basically he realized that he had made a huge mistake in setting up the Federal Reserve, and that it was, as you said, basically putting the country and the people into penury and servitude, into perpetuity. I mean, for forever and ever. Forever. Franklin Delano Roosevelt also, complained in his private writings that he was not in control, that the banks were in control, and that they make all the decisions. A lot has to change. And I would like to point out to your fans out there, Rory, in any debt that the Chinese central bank creates, is they're creating their own debt. They print their own money. They do not borrow money from the Rothschilds or from some wealthy Chinese family, trillionaire families. The Chinese are one of the few countries in the world that prints its own money. And that's not true for Russia, by the way. Unfortunately, with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1990, the United States basically wrote Russia's constitution, and the central bank was set up in the image of the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Stanleys, et cetera. And so Russia has that hanging around their neck, but China is free of the banking cartel, the Western banking cartel. So that's a huge advantage, for the world's biggest economy.
It's one of the few ways that we're going to be able to get out from underneath all of this. If we don't, then it's just going to it's going to get worse and worse and worse. We're going to lose all of our rights. I just hope that something changes. And I want to get back to this real quick.
Go ahead.
The BRICS gold marketplace that is coming online in Moscow and Beijing. In early 2016, we learned that one of the officers of the country of Kazakhstan met with the director of the Shanghai Gold Exchange for the specific purpose of discussing gold as currency along the One Belt, One Road project.
Oh, absolutely.
And now we have this piece of information coming online in conjunction with the Chinese SIPs and the Russian-Chinese CRITS system, both coming online. So you have three huge pieces of banking infrastructure that are now in place. And two of those involve gold. And two conversations have involved gold. And anyone that looks at the magnitude and the reach of One Belt, One Road cannot be denied. 70% of the global natural resources and somewhere around 60% of the global population will be directly impacted. And now, if these folks are talking about having gold as currency, somebody needs to be paying attention to that. And
well, the Chinese and of course Kazakhstan's a big producer of gold too, and they're a massive player in the One Belt, One Road strategy, and a powerful ally of Russia and China.
Yes.
Nusrallah Nazarbayev, the president of Kazakhstan. So. Kazakhstan is as big as Western Europe. It's a huge country, and and also another thing, Rory, is the Chinese back in 2015, late 2015, early 2016, they set up a $16 billion gold fund.
Yes.
To on the One Belt to develop infrastructure for mining. Processing of precious metals, any kind of natural resource, not so much oil and gas, but other things like gold, uranium, platinum, whatever, copper. It doesn't matter. Anything. They've set up this gold fund to expand infrastructure and development of resources along the One Belt, One Road, and so that $16 billion is being used in countries like Kazakhstan.
Yep, because they're buying mines. As I've said 100 times over, they're not acquiring all this gold to make more coins or to make more jewelry. They have a purpose. They have a reason for it, and it's not for jewelry and it's not for coins.
Period. Yeah, that's for sure.
So, well, what else is on your mind today, Jeff?
Well, I think it got a little bit of a buzz. We have online payments here with our telephones. People now are buying dinners and groceries and everything you can do now online with QR codes, and even people even street vendors, or I can go buy some fruit from somebody with no electricity anywhere, and she flashes me a QR code on her phone, and I can pay her online with WeChat and Alipay. And one of the great traditions in China is for Chinese New Year is to give especially children what are called red envelopes, and they have money in them, and that's the tradition to physically hand a red envelope to people to give as a gift. And they're supposed to, and there's money in there. And so WeChat and Alipay got the bright idea a couple of years ago to do red envelopes on your telephone, and so you can give red envelopes to people, and then they have this silly not this February, was it February last year, they set up a deal where you could say like, on everybody on my list of my contacts, I want to give like 5 cents, and so so it was just like this silly sort of ritual, but people loved. They just ate it up. Billions and billions of transactions of people sending each other 2, 3, 5, 10 cents, and then this year, WeChat got together with Tencent, which is a huge online operation over here. That's as big, if it's as big as Amazon or whatever, or Yahoo or whatever. People never even hear them over here, over there. But these online outfits are even bigger than Yahoo and Bing and these other online platforms. And they got the idea, well, let's instead of doing red envelopes with money, let's do red envelopes with gold. And so this last February was Chinese New Year this year. People were sending each other gold, and you could do you could do 1/1000th of a gram. So you're talking about 20, 30 cents, so people were actually sending each other little gold red envelopes full of gold. But what was really interesting is as a result of this, over Chinese New Year, 300,000 Chinese, over a course of 2 weeks, opened gold accounts at banks.
Oh, and my goodness.
They opened just because the idea of sending gold and these red envelopes got people interested, and so 300,000 people in 2 weeks opened up gold accounts at banks here. And when I turn on my phone and hit my icon on my phone, Bank of China, I have right there on my screen the actual time, the actual buy and sell price for gold per gram right on my phone in live time.
Wow.
And I haven't done it yet, but I opened up a gold trading account at Bank of China, and I mean I could be buying and selling gold paper now on my phone, but my wife and I preferred to hold it, and so we buy physical gold.
Now I want to interrupt you real quick about this WeChat, because I reported on this about a week ago, and I'm really glad that you're confirming this, because what I read was there was $14.5 million equivalent, somewhere north of 100 billion RMB, that transferred hands in this micro gold red envelope WeChat through the Chinese Lunar New Year. This micro gold. So I received 10 people send me a hundredth of a gram each. So now I have, close to 1 gram. So now I have 10 hundredths of a gram.
Yeah.
So I can go into my account and say, transfer that micro gold into a gold based account at the bank. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I can go into the bank.
At that point, it's still paper, but then you could go in and redeem it for physical gold.
That's what I was getting at, because that's where it becomes real, when it goes from an image on your phone to a coin in your hand. That's what I see moving forward. I mean, and it's, when I heard it, it was just I couldn't hardly believe the dollar amount. I mean, 100 million RMB in 1 week's time or 2 weeks' time of gold flying back and forth from one person to another. Oh
Yeah,
my
and
God.
it's in for 99% of the people it's just symbolic amounts, but there
No,
are
I
now
understand.
people who are sending not just portions of a gram, but they're actually sending kilos. I mean, you can
Right.
now I think you can do something like 200,000, about a kilo. You can do up to a kilo. And there's 800 and something million WeChat users in China. So what's cool about it is it just raises the awareness of gold
Yep.
here in China. And in fact, in 2016, gold jewelry sales plummeted, but more investment type instruments like ingots and coins increased by 30% last year. So
Wow.
people are moving from the idea of like jewelry, and now are looking at gold as an investment, by buying again ingots and
The storage of
and
wealth.
storage of wealth. And the neat thing is I can go into any bank in China and buy gold. I mean, you just get gold at the teller's window.
Just walk up and
um,
say, I'd like a 5 gram bar or 10 gram
yeah,
bar.
yeah, 10 gar or 100 grams or whatever you want. You just show your ID, and no one, it takes it. And if they don't have the denomination, or my wife and I buy 50 gram ingots. If they don't have that, then you say, okay, they may have some other ones, but we like the little 50-gram ingots. We order it, and we come back, in 2 or 3 days, and the delivery truck, the armored delivery truck, has brought it to the bank, and then we just pick it up and take it home, and put it in our safe.
Life is good.
So yeah, 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 yeah. So I mean, it's available at every teller window of every bank in China, and of course, every bank in China is publicly owned by the people. They're all state owned. A lot of people don't realize the four largest banks in the world are Chinese. The top four, bigger than Bank of America, bigger than Chase, bigger than Wells Fargo, bigger
But
than
those are all, I mean, you're just listing a bunch of mafia organizations.
And so the four largest banks in the world are people owned, and so yeah, it's gold here is now becoming more of a fixture in people's minds, and the WeChat thing was a brilliant PR coup, and
Yes.
and just to raise the awareness of gold as a fungible source, and to tie it to a thousands of years old tradition of giving red envelopes was just
Brilliant.
yeah, intelligent marketing. And so yeah, life goes on over here. We're it's like being on the back of a high speed Arabian racehorse. It's just
Getting after it.
it's that's absolutely right.
Oh, well, we've been speaking with Mr. Jeff J. Brown, and you can find all of his great work over at chinarising.puntopress.com. Jeff, it's always a pleasure, and I look forward to speaking with you in the not too distant future.
Yeah, we need to do this more often. The last time was November. That's too long.
It's too long. I agree. We'll get you back on before within the next couple months. How about that?
All right. Talk to you later, Rory.
All right, buddy.
Thanks. Bye bye.